In Murrindindi Shire, it's business as unusual, and right now our local businesses need you. Every dollar you spend locally helps business owners support their family, other businesses and you. Shop local, shop Dindi. Visit dindidirectory.com.au.
Welcome to Dindi Live, presented by Murrindindi Shire Council. Simulcast on UGFM in your local area.
Hi everybody, I'm Lee Dunscombe, the Mayor of Murrindindi Shire, and I would like to welcome you back to another episode in our series of Dindi Live events, bringing the arts to you in your home. This week I'd like to present the contemporary pop duo SOLOMAN and LACEY, and after their performance we'll be hearing from artist MARIAN and RENNIE with an insight into her life and work. So please stick with us and I hope you enjoy the show.
Dindi Live and the Murrindindi Shire Council would like to welcome SOLOMAN and LACEY.
Good afternoon and welcome to Dindi Live, brought to you by Murrindindi Shire Council, and we're SOLOMAN and LACEY.
I'm SOLOMAN.
I'm LACEY.
Well, writing songs is really what we do, and there's many ways that we write songs, and the inspiration comes from an experience that we might have, or a feeling that we have, or something. Current situation. On a global level or, personal level. But usually write from a point of intention. So if you've got something important to say, then you put it into a song, or a relationship experience or whatever. But it really comes from that point of intention and from that emotive experience. So we've been doing performing for around about 10 years.
Yeah, maybe even a little bit more than 10 years. But it's kind of hard. You kind of lose count a little bit. I think I was definitely born into the industry and born into performing with you even before we did it officially. Right from when you were doing gigs
early
back
on
in the day.
Yeah,
I was always there. Right from the beginning.
Yeah, performing at pubs even before I had my licence. I think I started playing around 15 and 16, playing all the yacht clubs around Melbourne. And speaking of place, we're here in Narberthon in the Murrindindi Shire, and we love it here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to call home and come back and recharge the batteries. I do get the best of both worlds. I've got a city pad in Brunswick, but it's so nice to always come back to my roots and to that safe space.
Safe space, yeah. Murrindindi is a safe space. I grew up in the outback of Australia and travelled from town to town. Our family was a bit of a gypsy family. So I kind of developed that connection with and that affinity with the bush and the landscape and the country folk and the people and the Aboriginal people along the way. So a lot of that spirit of place does influence the songs, and somehow it's encapsulated in the music, because the music and songs I find a little bit like time capsules, that you have an experience or something happens in your life, and then you either write a song or you hear a song, and that sort of brings you back to that moment in your life, even going back to listening to the first song that really kind of got you inspired to get onto the musical journey. So what's next for us? Well, we've released 8 albums. Well, actually, our eighth is coming out soon. We've got some new songs on the board. We've released a song called Red Rain, and we've also released
Black Cat and Guess Who's Coming to Town.
Guess Who's Coming to Town is that
recent couple.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's going to be released soon. Guess Who's Coming to Town is at the mastering suite as we speak. We've got many more YouTube clips coming out as well.
Yeah, we've had time in isolation to do plenty of work, and got heaps of content, both recordings, music videos, new songs. This as well. We've had a chance, the opportunity to perform for you guys as well, which is an awesome opportunity.
It's been great to be part of the program that Murrindindi Shire is going to put out, supporting musicians and local artists. Of course, we do perform in the Shire, but we also perform a lot outside the Shire, and we've done many shows, both in Melbourne and throughout Australia. And we look forward to coming out of this lockdown and this COVID-19 bubble madness. So we're hoping you're all staying sane and looking after each other. We are doing that as best we can, but we're looking forward to coming performing for you when this is all over and we can actually start to reconnect with our audiences.
Yeah, performing live again, that'll be a really good feeling after such a long time in the bubble.
In the bubble, yeah. So take care out there, and we look forward to seeing you when we can perform next.
Thanks for listening.
Here are Solomon and Lacey with their song Demons and Angels.
So you're walking hand in hand right across the deep hard land, burning dreams through a twilight haze as the light slowly fades, tall and dark where the shadows fall. I didn't really know you at all. Demons and angels. Too many times I've told myself, don't wanna leave my heart on the shelf, where the creatures of the night dance until the morning light, tall and dark where the shadows fall. I saw you right down the hall. Demons and angels. Demons and angels, demons and angels. Never said that you were skin deep through the layers that I seek. I wanna feel your soul tonight. I wanna give in and hold on tight. Tall and dark where the shadows fall. I didn't really know you at all. Demons and angels. Demons and angels, demons and angels, tall and dark where the shadows fall. I saw you right down the hall. Demons and angels, demons and angels. Demons and angels.
Here's another song. It's called Hollywood Boulevard.
go, looking for a sign that'll take me there to a place that I would know. I came across a star lying on the ground. It should have been in the sky. We build 'em up and we tear 'em down on Hollywood Boulevard. On Hollywood Boulevard. Young girls that never knew themselves, put them up on high, gave them something to believe in, and they took away the charm. Pay the price and all the sacrifice, their innocence swept away. As tears roll down their cheeks on Hollywood Boulevard. On Hollywood Boulevard. You don't know me, you don't own me, you don't know how I feel. Oh, how I feel. Went to the city that never sleeps, the pavement worn and shines, neon lights flashing in Times Square. Could this place ever be mine? Man preaching on 42nd Street, screaming, who do you think you are? Couldn't help thinking of that little girl on Hollywood Boulevard. On Hollywood Boulevard. You don't know me, you don't own me, you don't know how I feel. Oh, how I feel. You don't know me, you don't know me, you don't know how I feel. Oh, how I feel.
If you liked that, you'll love the Dindi sessions, new songs from emerging young artists across our shire. Head over to the Murrindindi Youth Facebook page for more. Tomorrow, Cherri Anderson is set to release her new song Red Flags. Here's a sneak peek.
Hi, I'm Cherri and I'm from Kinglake, and I started singing lessons when I was in grade 5, but actually have been singing basically my whole life. I've always loved it from the beginning, and here I am today after lots of rehearsals, lots of performing, and been doing some recording today. Hopefully going to have an EP out this year, so I'm excited for that.
We'd like to introduce tonight to Dindi Live, RENNIE, painter and creative.
Hi, I'm Marian and welcome to Dindi Live. My name is RENNIE and I'm an artist that lives in Akron, which is just outside of Alexandra in the sort of on the banks of the Goulburn River. I grew up here, went away for a long time, and finally the sort of draw to come back sort of brought me back here when I was 50. And since then I've established a studio and a restaurant and a gallery and basically worked on my mother's garden, which was sort of one of the things that drew me back here. But I've always loved this area, but I think I was the rebellious child that had to go, you know, when I was younger. I took off, so to speak. But I came back. And it's, you know, it's a very special area to me, and I can't imagine now living anywhere else.
Tell us a little bit about your creative practice, what you actually do.
What do I do? That's a really good question, Bill. I've worked in the arts for as long as I can remember. I started painting when I was about 7. And then as a young girl, I went to Melbourne to school and things like that. But then as a young girl going down to Melbourne, as I said, I was a tad rebellious, so I wasn't very disciplined when it came to leaving boarding school and going and doing tertiary education. So I took off and went and lived in the outback and a few things. But basically, my love all my life has been painting. So it was sort of getting through those years of being a young country girl, feeling like at a bit of a loss in the city and finding myself creatively. That was a challenge. But I persisted and it slowly happened. I worked in lots of different areas like TV and theatre, dress design, costume design, but it was always vaguely associated around the arts. And then it must have been in my 30s, I think, I'd finished working on a film, Ricky and Pete, or it might have been Malcolm in Melbourne, and someone asked me if I'd do the painted bodies for a Mondo Rock film clip. And that was at a place in Swanston Street. I think it used to be called Peanuts, and it was a nightclub, but it's now a rock climbing place or something like that, changed totally. And there I met a guy who was the cinematographer called Barry Halloran, and basically we ended up together. At that point I was living in Collingwood, Carlton, and he really said to me, what do you really want to do in your life? And I said, well, I want to paint. And Barry, in his most unbelievable way, said to me, well, look, I'll give you 2 years to paint. So, as I said, he was in the film industry. Whole thing sort of worked, it just sort of worked out. And he gave me, which I look back now and think is pretty amazing, the space to just paint for 2 years. And after that, Barry had a heart attack and his world in the film industry changed because it's a freelance world and, you know, all that stuff. And so he started to manage my work. We exhibited and worked all over the world, and sadly Barry died here, about sort of 8 or 9 years ago. But at that point in time, that, you know, painting had become my career. But then I moved back here and built this as my studio with Barry, and I thought I'd put a little coffee shop in, and really it sort of ended up into a full-blown restaurant. And now, with COVID and things, I'm actually thinking more of just coming back into my art and my work, which is a very sort of satisfying thing for me.
What drew you back to Murrindindi?
What drew me back to Murrindindi? I was living in East Melbourne. I had a gallery in Williamstown, and my dad was alive at that point. My mum had died, and this was his family's farm, and, you know, Dad was sort of a fairly well-known, wonderful man. And he left the farm to the 5 girls. I'm one of 8 children. And he left the farm to the 5 girls. I knew that I couldn't run everything I did in Melbourne and keep all those balls in the air and keep Akron going. But I also knew that I couldn't bear Akron sort of being owned by anybody else, I suppose. It's a bit sort of, you know, well, my father always said you never owned it, you caretook it. That was your role with it. And my mother had established a really beautiful garden here, and I think, you know, that was her passion. And continuing that garden's been a great wonderful thing. And so she still lives on here. Dad was so much part of here. I just think it was keeping the whole ball rolling, keeping it all going. And I mean, hopefully it'll continue into the next generation, but who knows what happens then. That's out of my hands.
What do you love about the place you live?
It's incredibly beautiful. I have really strong ties, obviously, growing up in the same house. I have incredibly strong historical ties here. I think my father's family came here in the 1850s. They were up around 10 Mile in Kevington. They were the early settlers. And my mother grew up at Buxton. And so there is the historical thing. But there's also the fact that I just always loved it. I remember even when I was, young and being sent away to boarding school, I missed the farm so much and I wanted to come back. So, but then in absolute defiance, I took off and did everything opposite, as you do. I just think it's a very, very beautiful place. And coming back here at 50, a lot of my life I was frightened of coming back here because I felt that I would give up my quest or my creative thing. But in another way, it actually worked differently because I felt like I'd done the full circle and I felt very much back at home and part of where I was. So I just love it, but basically the sense of belonging. I mean, I feel like I belong here.
Does place influence your work? Do you find that your work's changed depending on where you are living or residing?
Very much, but it's interesting you say that because even when I was working in the studio in Melbourne, Akron was always an aspect, and the land was always an aspect of my work. So this place has always impacted on my work, and so much of my art probably came out of my mother being a gardener, the love for flowers, my father's love of the land. I mean, Dad loved this land. It was his life. So a lot of it came out of that. We were really lucky in our upbringing to have that, I think. Does place... Yes, it does. But at the same time, I think that I paint very much from an emotional level. And really, when I look back, most of my life, my emotions have actually been tied to Akron. I probably wasn't aware at an earlier age. So it's always had a huge impact. So on that level, yes, place, I think, has really defined my work.
What are you currently working on?
Well, I'm currently working on the work on the easel, but I'm also waiting for a roll of canvas to come to Melbourne hopefully today, because my brother died a month ago and his son has asked me to do a painting that sort of represents, him to my nephew. So that's going to be, I'm just waiting on the I was going to start yesterday and I looked and I had my roll of canvases finitoed, but it should be here today. So I will actually start that. So that's going to be a painting, they're potato farmers, and so it's going to be a painting about like growth and life and the land, and he wants it to be very much about his father's influence in his life. So it will evolve. I've got some drawings. As soon as the canvas is, I'll actually start on it. So in the meantime, I've just been working on a few older paintings that I've had in the studio for a little while. And once I had to close down for COVID here, it's given me a chance to, pick up the brush again, which I'm loving.
We heard you've been working a little bit with Solomon and LACEY. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Solomon and LACEY and Christine and Phil from Little River Wines, we all collaborate and work together on different projects, and our idea is to build up to the more sort of contemporary level of the arts here. So until COVID, we had planned a concert which was Red Rain, which in support of the fire brigades and things like that, because they've all sort of been really impacted by the year before COVID with all the fires. And it was to be, we hope it still will be, a concert in the Shire Hall and supported by the council, which is fantastic. So it's mainly just developing the small group that we've brought together between the few of us called Concerts for Causes, but to actually support causes in this area and be able to run concerts, exhibitions, with part of the proceeds going to whoever we sort of select or whoever we decide to work with. We've already done one for Kellogg, and that was very successful last year. So we decided the Fire Brigade, and just hopefully after COVID we can continue developing that sort of whole concept. And at the same time, I'm looking at now, I think this time of COVID, we will have to change the way we do a lot of things. And so I'm probably looking at making this more an artist-in-residence, arts-based environment. I'm sort of working on that at the moment. So that ties in very much with SOLOMAN and LACEY and music workshops, and basically just sort of developing a creative centre in the area.
Can you explain a little bit about the importance of art and what's going on in Murrindindi Shire?
You know, as a young girl, I wanted to be an artist. That's what I wanted to be. I mean, there was a genetic, it was there, you know. But I had to leave here to do that. And I look back now and I think if more younger people stay in the area is much better. And we need to provide a sort of a basis for them to keep them stimulated, alive, able to express themselves. And without that, they will go away. Like I did, I left to sort of explore myself and my youth. I think that's a really important part, but I think it's also a really important part just in bringing people to the area. This, as I said, I think now we'll have less international travel, but I think people will travel a lot more regionally. So I think it's an opportunity on a level of whether you call it tourism or the arts, but to really develop these areas. And I think that we've got a lot to give. I think there's a lot of really good artists here who probably to now haven't had much of a voice because it hasn't been really known as an arts area. That's growing, that's changing. I just think it's very important as part of the culture of any area.
Thanks again to Solomon and LACEY and MARIAN RENNIE, and also thanks to you for listening and supporting local. Dindi Live will be back with you next week, 6:30 p.m. Friday on Facebook.
In Murrindindi Shire, it's business as unusual, and right now our local businesses need you. Every dollar you spend locally helps business owners support their family, other businesses and you. Shop local, shop Dindi. Visit dindidirectory.com.au.